Hello and welcome to NewsNight. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. It's our pleasure to have you join us today. The COVID-19 virus is still wreaking havoc in various parts of the world, particularly with the continuing discovery of variants which are more virulent in nature. In Nigeria, and mercifully too, in spite of non-compliance with COVID prevention protocols, as well as a very challenged healthcare system, the number of cases and fatalities remains low. Why is this the case? What's our status report on COVID-19 vaccines approval for use, as well as surmounting the challenges of getting medicines to tackle Nigeria's other health problems at this time? NewsNight talks to the Director General of the National Agency for Food, Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye. Prof, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you so much.
Let's begin with the most current situation. Can you update us on where we are with the issue of vaccines, approvals, the requests, and so on? Because I know that some traditional vaccines, some people are claiming that they've submitted them to NAFDAC for approval and so on. And then, of course, I know that a couple of weeks ago, you approved an additional one for use. And so what's the situation with that? How many vaccines are we able to use now?
Actually, we have AstraZeneca, which is the Covishield that we approved about 3 months ago, and which Nigeria is on the second dose right now. Since then, we've approved Pfizer BioNTech, which is the one that is supposed to be stored at very low temperature.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we've approved J&J. J&J is the one-shot vaccine.
Yes, Johnson & Johnson.
Johnson & Johnson. And we will get the doses. How many million doses, we don't know yet. But we'll be getting that maybe end of this second quarter or beginning of first quarter. But we're going to get Johnson & Johnson. Okay. And all these vaccines are coming from COVAX facility that has earmarked doses for 20% of our population, which is about 40 million doses, or doses for 40 million people. Yes. So aside from AstraZeneca, and then the Pfizer BioNTech, which we may get, we may not get. The Johnson & Johnson is the third one. We are hoping to get Moderna. Moderna is also an mRNA vaccine. That Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are the mRNA vaccine. We may, but at least we're going to give approval
for the use.
For the use, so that if a group passes through the Ministry of Health, then, and the MPHCDA, Primary Health, gives the approval, then we will have that as part of what we can use. We are also looking at Sputnik, is the Russian vaccine, and we are looking at Sinopharm,
which is the Chinese
the Chinese vaccine. We are very, very careful, extremely careful about the vaccines that we approve, because we want to be sure that the health of our own people is premium. No compromise about that. So we have 3 already that we have approved, and we are looking at another 3 that we will be approving, or if everything goes right, we will be approving. So that is it with the vaccines.
The vaccine approval.
Right now.
What's the difference between an emergency approval and what would have been a traditional approval if we weren't in an emergency?
That's a very good question. Our registration process starts with the manufacturer bringing up or submitting their dossier. Dossier is the Bible of drug development. From preclinical, when you are testing in rats, mice, and whatnot, and then to phase 1, to phase 2, to phase 3. The difference between the 3 phases are the number of people that you use. Phase 1 is very small number, 2 bigger number, 3 thousands of people. So aside from the quality, which is where it's supposed to start from, you go through these phases, okay? And then if everything is fine, you submit to us, regulators. If everything is fine, the chemistry, manufacturing controls are okay, then we give full approval.
Okay.
Unlike what we have now, that is emergency use approval. However, when we give that full approval, the product comes to the market.
Okay.
Bear in mind, for phases 1, 2, 3, the studies are under controlled conditions. For example, phase 3, they can say, okay, all the people that are pregnant, excluded. All the people that have kidney problems, excluded. So it's a controlled clinical study.
Okay.
But now, after approval, which is what we call pharmacovigilance and post-marketing phase,
okay,
we call it phase 4. It is now available for millions of people. Then we start if it's a new product, we start looking at what is happening. What are the reports that we are getting about the adverse events or side effects from this drug that we mightn't have gotten in phases 1, 2, 3.
3, yes.
So that is full approval. Now, that particular drug product has gotten through the 3 phases, and now phase 4 is just observational, or sometimes when something happens, we do a little clinical study to make sure that everything is okay. However, for emergency use authorization, the product is still under study, meaning they've gone through phases 1, 2, 3, aside from the preclinical, right, which is the animal studies. But because of the need, the critical need for public health, this product is released after it has been deemed efficacious, after phase 3.
Okay.
Meaning everything is fine until phase 3, but instead of spending another year or 2 to do, for example, we do stability studies. Is this product going to be stable? Usually we do stability studies accelerated 3 months. If long term can take 2 years.
Whoa.
So for regular process, it will take another 1.5 years to 2 years to finish the stability studies, meaning that this product, if it's on the market, how fast can it break down? Okay. That is for full approval. But for emergency use, we don't have that luxury because of the pandemic.
Man.
Let me give you an example of the Pfizer-BioNTech. The Pfizer-BioNTech was said to have the storage condition of minus 80 degrees centigrade. That was where they kept, that was where the temperature that Pfizer kept it, just to be sure it's not going to break down. But they started doing the stability studies.
Right.
After it has been released. But everybody got it that it is minus 80. Later they then found out that it's actually stable at minus 25. Okay. Which is a higher temperature.
But we'd already started using it at that time.
Exactly. Because when you are doing stability studies, you use different temperatures. You may use minus 80, minus 50, minus 30, then minus 15 or whatever. And when you are now plotting the graph, when you see that there is no difference between minus 80 and minus 20, then you know that you can store it at minus 20. Yes. It takes time. It takes time, but for pandemic, there's no luxury of time. So we kept using it. People kept using it, and later they then said, "Oh, you can actually store it at a higher temperature." Mm-hmm. So that is the difference between full approval and emergency use. And then after that, phase 3 that I said are common to both, we now have to go through the pharmacovigilance and the post-marketing. Because a lot of time has not been spent on it, aside from the phase 3, there was no phase 4, full phase 4 post-marketing to study. we now have to study it. And that was where NAFDAC came into the picture with primary health. We have to study it to know that it is safe. So we have this app that we got a few months before the vaccine came, Med Safety app. It is for reporting adverse events or side effects for any product. You can download it, and when you download it on iPhone or Samsung or whatever, Android, you can enter your name, your initials, and that will be your own record forever. Okay. And you can say, okay, oh, I used this medicine, I started getting headache 2 days or 1 day or whatever. And that is what we started using for the COVID vaccine. Okay. So we are doing a lot of studies. We have pharmacovigilance staff spread all over the country. There was a lot of training. We also trained the epidemiologists that are under primary health oversight. We train them because they are the ones that will be at the vaccination centers and whatnot. So with our staff, we started monitoring what is going on with each vaccinee, each person that got the vaccination, because there is no way that there will not be side effects.
Also partly because you hadn't had time to study the thing in full. And to be able to avoid some of those.
Exactly, and it's a new molecule. There is no drug that doesn't have side effects. This is part of drug product development.
Let me bring you to our current situation, because the issue of vaccines is now ongoing, and of course the problem with supply continues, because many of the supply nations themselves now have issues internally. But broadly speaking, beyond the issue of vaccination, COVID-19 has even affected the supply of other drugs for other treatments that you had approved and not approved. And so people are having, because they're under pressure, they seem to be, quote unquote, cutting corners. So you're having medications coming from non-traditional sources. How are you dealing with that as NAFDAC?
That is what will I call it, our butter and bread, or bread and butter. That is what we do every day. It's something, things have happened in NAFDAC over the past 2 years that are so timely, because we have what is called the Clean Report Inspection Analyst in China and India, where all products coming to the country imported are analyzed. But there were loopholes, big loopholes. And 2 years ago, I decided that we're going to go to China and India and read the Riot Act to them. That trading is based on agreement. If what you are trading with me is going to kill me, I will cut you off. But if all of us know that it's going to benefit both sides, oh, we can have this relationship for a long time. So that was what we did. That was September 2019.
Just before COVID?
Just before COVID. We went to China, we went to India, and my staff went to 19 laboratories between the two countries. We've already listed what we wanted to see in the labs that are going to be testing our products. Because we heard that products are deemed tested and brought to Nigeria, and the lab said that tested didn't even have the equipment over there. So those are the types of loopholes. That's the type of loopholes that I was talking about. So we went there and certified the labs. Then COVID-19 came. Of course, we signed agreement. We dropped some labs. We dropped some agents because our philosophies don't match in terms of quality. So we started working with our agents and the laboratories March 2020.
Right in the middle of
in the middle of COVID. And like you said, there were people who thought that they could, because of the COVID pandemic, bring all sorts of things. Of course, there have been a lot of problems in Nigeria because NAFDAC was removed from the pot 2011 to 2018. So anything was coming. Anything could come to Nigeria during that period. But more so because of this pandemic. And we started stopping a lot of shipments after the products have been tested and had quality failure. So we've put all our feelers out. Our enforcement, investigation and enforcement, they go and do raids once they get information, because we have to deal with informants also. Our borders, you know, in fact, what is helping us now is our single portal window. Our port inspection directorate has completely changed. You cannot bring anything in without you being tracked, because you have to go on our portal, which is linked with customs and with CBN. And if you, before they could forge our certificate, no longer, it's difficult to forge our certificate now, because we have gone e-portal or gone single portal window. So you are right that all sorts of things could come in, but we have all our feelers out. But we are not there yet in terms of 100%, you know, capable of monitoring everything. But we are, for example, we are purchasing a device called TrueScan. It's already been approved by FEC. We're about to procure now. You can go to the market and put it on a tablet. It will show the name of the tablet, to show the quantity of the drug that is there. Not the name of the name of the drug in
that
the
is
tablet.
contained in it.
Exactly. Yes. And then the level of it. NAFDAC used to be the first country or agency in the world to use that apparatus about 10 years ago. But it has now been improved to actually know the quantity, not just to identify the drug itself. We're going to be using that. Just so many means or facets that we're using to monitor falsified medicines. But I said butter and bread because yes, it is what we do every day. Within the country, we send our feelers out. We take samples from manufacturers. And if they fail, in terms of quality, we shut them down. We have shut about 6 companies down because they didn't meet good manufacturing practice guidances or guidelines. We shut them down. Sometimes we will shut lines down because you may have 10 lines in your company.
Different drugs.
Yes, and then we just shut some lines down just to let them know. And when you shut lines down that have been bringing 200 million per month, you shut them down for 3 months. It hits the pocket. And that is the message you want to. Not to punish, is to set a deterrent. Because I'm so sold on local manufacturing. Because without local manufacturing, the over-dependence that has affected us will continue. We cannot as a country be over-dependent on imports. Because with that, there's not going to be drug security.
COVID revealed that.
Has already, for example, India now has has stopped.
They can't.
They cannot,
because they have their
own people, and I don't blame them. So our own challenge now is to step up, because God has given us this. It is us to step up. God has endowed Nigeria with too much. Good weather, good people, good brain. What do we need? Except to use that talent that God has poured on this country. And that is where we are going now, in terms of making sure that you can manufacture our own vaccines within the country.
That would be a very, very timely objective. But this is dangerous work because a lot of money is involved in this. I know that your staff, your personnel have been attacked in several places because the people who are bringing in these various substandard, counterfeit medications and drugs have a lot riding on it. So they don't mind being ruthless. Has that situation improved? Because, of course, I was talking about a couple of years ago before COVID. COVID has now made the situation even more desperate, if you like. And so, is it better now than it was?
I don't think so. I don't think it's better because when a merchant of death, I will call them merchants of death, because if you intentionally falsified or counterfeited a drug product and sold it as another product, the intent is to kill. The intent is to make sure that the person using it will not get better. You don't have to put a knife on somebody's toe before you kill that person. You can have bad medicine that will make that person to die. So when you have this type of people, they become desperate. Our staff, people don't understand what NAFDAC does. Our work is dangerous. The daughter of one of our staff was kidnapped in Kano because he was doing his work. These are just examples. Another one had death threat in Lagos. A driver was going to drive the officers to a place where bad medicine, they said they're going to kill the driver. So you cannot even remove driver from regulatory officer from, no, because we are all in it together. The work is very dangerous, but we, as much as possible, have protection. The police has been very, very, very cooperative. And then the Federal Task Force is in NAFDAC, is domiciled in NAFDAC. It is C-34 bill, or, or law, and we have about 85 policemen in
attached
NAFDAC, to NAFDAC, investigation and enforcement. So it is a dangerous job, because somebody wants to bribe you at the port. You are a NAFDAC officer. That person is supposed to pay 20 million to get the goods cleared, and you refused. And this person is part of a cabal. They may do anything. One of our staff was inspecting a container, went into the container, and they went in with him and beat the heck out of him. He was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. These are things we go through, our staff, that they go through almost on a weekly basis. We went to Onitsha Bridgehead just before the pandemic, 2019 July or something, because an antibiotic has 0 content. It was purchased and we tracked it to Onitsha Bridgehead. Our staff, enforcement staff, went there with police, and they almost mopped them with police. So this is a daily occurrences in NAFDAC. And that is what many people don't understand. That we are not just civil servants. We are civil servants guarding the health, overseeing, making sure that the health of our people is protected. And that comes with a lot of risks.
The drugs aspect that you mentioned, the issue of Kano, that when
Yes.
you talked about Kano, and then the Bridgehead.
Yes.
Those are 2 locations where the actual problem with drugs, things like tramadol and so on, are very prevalent. In fact, I believe it was the former Emir of Kano
Yes.
who said that what is going on in Kano with relation to drugs, drug use,
Yeah.
is a pandemic on its own, waiting to become problematic. But then NAFDAC is not the world's biggest agency. So I'm wondering, how do you face people that you've just described at the Bridgehead, in Kano? You're talking of millions of naira. They brandish all kinds of equipment and all of that. How do you deal with that? How have you been able to deal with that? Because every day we hear NAFDAC sees this, NAFDAC sees that, but then somehow some are still managing to get through.
Yes. Some of them are still managing to get through. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And this, ours, of course, the intensity of ours is stronger but it is all over the world. It's all over the world. Substandard falsified medicine, counterfeited medicines. So we work with so many agents. World Customs Organization, we work with Interpol, we work with FBI, because it is a dragnet across the world. But in terms of Kano and Bridgehead, we have a case about 2 years ago. I just got a note from an informant that 31 containers of tramadol are coming to Nigeria. And NAFDAC must stop it. I said, no, somebody is trying to set me up. Fortunately, I had another email for that person. And I said, is that coming from you? He said, yeah. NAFDAC should stop it. 31 containers. I said, what did we do? Are they going to kill all of us with tramadol? So I called my director. I sent it to him. Our staff were keeping vigil. I'm talking of sleeping at the ports, watching. Because these containers were labeled for bonded terminals, meaning nobody should touch them. We were able to apprehend or seize 24 containers, actually 26 containers. 5 of those containers, one first came, because we also have, our Port Inspection Directorate has a software that can track the movement of any shipment globally. When they knew that the ports in Nigeria has become hot, they turned back. And we saw them turning back on the sea. They went to a West African country. We contacted our ambassador. Please, let's see who is coming to pick that container. They knew. Then 4 started coming and heard that, oh, the port is getting hotter. They turned back, went to another West African country. And the West African country said, what is your port of destination, or where are you going? He said, Nigeria. Go back. We're not taking you. So they went to the first West African country where the first container landed.
Yes.
So now you have 5 containers there of tramadol. So our ambassador said, just make sure. Please make sure, sir. Anybody who comes to claim, we pick that person up. They knew. The good news is that we are now working with Benin government. We have just been given, this is 2 years plus, we have just been given now an approval to come and take the containers. But it's going to be now an intergovernmental exercise. We're going to destroy the containers.
Won't your staff be tempted, don't you think? Some of them. Because we are talking of huge sums of money here.
In fact, what I heard about those 30-something containers is that each agent was going to be given 1 billion naira. Agent was going to be given 1 billion naira. So you can see what is at stake. And that is part of what I also try to make our other MDAs understand, salaries and wages. That I don't condone, misbehavior or whatever. But like you said, our staff are faced with temptation. But if the salary structure is not good enough, who knows, somebody may be. So part of what I started doing as soon as I came in, not even knowing the details, is to ensure that our staff are well compensated. Because that doesn't mean you give them millions of naira every month, but let them have money to be able to rent their homes, to send their children to school and so on. So we'll be working on that, to give them the type of allowances. For example, this hazard allowance that, the hazard that we face. I don't know how much money you can even give to a staff that was beaten and couldn't get off for 3 weeks. So these are the things we are doing now to improve the compensation or the emolument of our staff. But the danger is
still
there.
very much there.
Is there.
Another aspect of this, the drug trade and so on, is the issue, and it has come to fore with COVID-19.
Yes.
Is the issue of generic manufacturing of drugs.
Yes.
A number of people have said, oh, well, because the branded drugs are so expensive,
yes,
particularly with the case of COVID, we should allow poorer countries to manufacture to standard.
Yes.
But not the branded ones. That's so that right. They can afford. Is that happening in Nigeria? Are you considering that coming not only for COVID, but for other medications as well, which are quite expensive and which are used for significant diseases?
Actually, yes. Nigeria manufacturing industry is basically an industry that deals with generics. Over 90% of the products manufactured in Nigeria are generics. It is now whether we want to have local content of it or we continue to import. Whether generics or imported, over 90% are generics. So what we are doing right now is to set policies. We have what is called 5+5 policy. You have been bringing Panadol. Oh, let me use another one. Panadol is on our prohibition list. You have been bringing X medicine for years, and we renew every 5 years. But that medicine is being made by 10 manufacturers in Nigeria already. So at the end of your last renewal, or the beginning of your next renewal, will tell you, you're going to have to migrate into local manufacturing. If you cannot set up your industry, your company, your facility, partner with somebody who locally. Has. Because we have the capacity to manufacture such drugs. So that is what we call 5+5. So at the beginning of that renewal, the last renewal, say, okay, you have 5 years. By the end of the 3rd year within that 5-year period, you have to show us your plan. If you don't show us the plan, at the beginning of the 10th year, we delist that product from our database because we have it anyway in Nigeria. So that is one of the policies that we're using to encourage production, local manufacturing of generics, since most of our products are generics. We also have another policy. We can have a ceiling. Okay, we have 1,000 products in our database as an example, and 50 companies are manufacturing just
that one.
So we put a ceiling on it. We don't need this coming from outside. Again, we have the capacity to manufacture. We are doing that as we speak, adding more to that ceiling. First, it's going to help our own economy because we will be able to employ more staff. We will have more drug security. So it's a win-win situation for the country. That is another example of how we are encouraging local manufacturing. Another thing that COVID has brought is the CBN involvement. The governor of CBN is passionately concerned about local content. He wants us to manufacture locally. So what the government did was to now set up infrastructure intervention fund, where after looking at the books of so many pharmaceutical companies, they started giving very low interest rate loans to companies. And a lot of companies are benefiting. Now you see companies expanding, our own local companies expanding, companies even leaving the old factory and building new ones. It's amazing what is going on with our own pharmaceutical industry. So the government has realized also that the health sector was neglected for a long time.
Your partnership with international agencies, you've spoken a little bit about that. But in terms of drug manufacturing, the pharmaceutical industry internationally is huge. And many of those companies are very powerful. COVID-19 has shown us that because some of them have taken on countries and the countries have had to bow to say, look, okay, fine, if that's what you want, we'll give you. Our industry has not developed to that state yet where they can take on the country or the government yet. Whether that's a good or bad thing, you will be able to tell us. But I guess where I'm going is that your partnership with agencies like the UNODC and others like that who focus, the DEA in the US and so on, who focus on drugs, drug manufacturing, counterfeit drugs and so on. How is that going? Because we don't really have the technology here to monitor everywhere. So people talk about the partnership. Are they willing to partner with you? And if so, what has been the result of that?
Actually, the COVID-19 pandemic has taught the whole world a lesson. Let me start with the vaccine first, and then I'll go to the therapeutics. The big countries, the developed countries are getting to herd immunity levels now. But Africa hasn't. Maybe only about 2% of our population has been vaccinated. But the developed countries now know also that if everybody is not protected, nobody is protected. Because if somebody takes a variant from another country to a country that has been vaccinated, they may be affected because there are still few people that have not been vaccinated there. So what the world body is doing right now is trying to make sure that African countries have capacity to manufacture vaccines. That is what is going on as we speak. However, to be able to manufacture vaccines, NAFDAC has to be strong enough to be able to control. So what is called maturity level. We've been working on this for about 3 years. Since I came, that was what I jumped into. We have over 240 requirements, quality system requirements.
240?
That we have to meet. As of a week plus ago, we have about 30 left.
That's still a lot.
It's still a lot. But as we are speaking, we are trying to, because they are coming. This is WHO, what is called ISO 9004 global benchmarking. They are coming in about 3 weeks. And we've already sent them. We just sent them everything we have from that 240.
The dossier that you mentioned earlier.
Yes, and they can go, it's a Microsoft 365 source, SharePoint. We send them the link and they click and keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4. What are the evidences that you have done this? You have done that. Once we get to that level, Nigeria can start manufacturing vaccines. But we have to get there. So we are running the race as we speak to get there. But we will get there very soon because it is the best thing that could have happened to NAFDAC. It is foundation laying. When we get to level 3 and we go to level 4, the products that NAFDAC approves can be traded all over the world. You can imagine how that can transform our economy. So this is a serious business for the country in terms of the vaccine. So the world now recognizes that they have to also help Africa in terms of encouraging funding and whatnot. For therapeutics, I've had several meetings with UNODC, Melinda Gates Foundation, and so on. Everybody knows that without local manufacturing, the world is in trouble. Because you just never know what is going to turn into pandemic. And if the medicine is not in one part of the country, or the world rather, is not available, accessible, it may affect another part of the world. So generally speaking, they are encouraging local manufacturing. And in terms of oversight, UNODC, we had a meeting about 2-3 weeks ago with others, and okay, we want to join with you. We know that you have this, you have that, I'm not the only, no, regulatory authorities generally.
Yes, generally.
Yes, we want to join you to use other means to make sure that drugs are not counterfeited, things like that. So they, they are really cooperating with us.
Before we end this, I want to ask about the synergy between you and other regulatory agencies. Agencies like Standards Organization of Nigeria and others like that. Why? Because it would appear as if, because our own system is such that it will, each agency appears to want to work in a silo.
Yeah.
So you don't know what this agency is doing as opposed to what this agency is doing, whereas they are all probably doing the same thing. How have you tackled that? Because what I have learned about government and government institutions is that people fight for territory like no man's business. How have you dealt with that?
Actually, 2 weeks before resuming, I visited USP, United States Pharmacopoeia. They were working with NAFDAC at that point, and they had a gap assessment study. And one of the things that they found out in their gap assessment is interagency problems. So I had that before I resumed. And I knew that I had to tackle that problem, because without us working together, it is the traders, it is the manufacturers, it is the clients or shareholders that will lose. So the first agency, in fact, it is Pharmacists Council of Nigeria. We are the two regulatory agencies in the country. The registrar visited me within a week. And the relationship has been so good and it's still improving. In fact, this maturity level 3 that I'm talking about,
yes,
it's not just NAFDAC. We have 7 functions that we have to work on. Those 7 functions has these 240 requirements. One of the function is licensing. And PCN, or Pharmacists Council of Nigeria, is in charge of licensing facility. So the 2 of us are being evaluated by WHO. It is just that they have 1, we have 6 regulatory functions.
Right.
So we have no choice. Before I came, there were a lot of problems, but now things are improving. We meet together. We have, actually, myself and the registrar, we meet every other week or so, For some, we had problems, but things are improving now. I believe in relationship, because once you build relationship with somebody, even if there are factors that are pushing that person to do this or that, that relationship is transparent, will bring good things out. Another one is the what do you call it? This FCCPC,
Yes, the consumer protection.
Consumer protection. They are supposed to protect the consumers, and if there is something to do with food and drugs, the DG will call me and say, "Oh, there's a problem here. It's affecting the public, but NAFDAC has to do this, do that." They may even tell us, "Oh, you need to go and test the sample," and then we share information. So it's getting better compared to what it used to be.
My final question is this, and you talked about it earlier, but you didn't go to it. Is there any scientific reason why, in spite of the fact that Africa is the least served of the continents in terms of availability of drugs, adequate healthcare systems, but we have conversely also recorded the lowest number of fatalities from COVID? And so I ask you because you're a scientist. I've asked others. They say there's no real, they can't give a reason. So maybe you could. Is there a real reason why, conversely, because even those who talked about COVID at the beginning expected huge fatalities in Africa. That has not happened, even up until now.
I was at an event organized by the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria about a month ago or so, or 5 weeks ago. And as odd as it sounds, our faulty healthcare delivery system is working in our favor. and I will explain. The pharmacists are all over. Patent medicine dealers are all over. We have only 40,000 medical doctors in this country for 200 million people. You can imagine if we have to go to the hospital, everybody.
Yes.
So the fact that it's faulty, it's not the way it's supposed to be. The fact that you can walk to a pharmacist and complain for something and then they give you your medicine is working in our favor. There have been medicines that are, okay, these are medicines that work against COVID, that can cause, heal people from COVID and whatnot. There are research studies done for chloroquine. Chloroquine is antiviral, has been documented to work against COVID. However, there may be problems of resistance after a while because of the nature of chloroquine. Ivermectin, which is antiparasite, okay. That one has also been proven to work against COVID. Our agbo.
Traditional herbs.
Yes, now. There is no Nigerian that doesn't take anti-malaria. At least once a year. Well, there may be some, few, but most Nigerians take anti-malaria at least once a year, if not once every 3 months.
Yes.
And who knows whether there is something similar in the way this COVID exhibits itself and malaria. And so if there's a common factor and we are now taking anti-malarials, that says it all.
Thank you, Professor Adeyeye. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's NewsNight. Thanks for watching. Do let us know what you think of this conversation and much more. Our social media handles are on your screen. You can also watch this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Please visit our website, channelstv.com/podcast. I am Ladi Akirido Luale. Goodbye.